This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to TopCatTeamSales.com. That's TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Hello, Detroit! Welcome to another edition on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You're listening to the Doc and Jock Sports Program. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam the Jock Strozinski.
And I am a certified G and a bona fide stud, and you can't teach that.
It's the best part of this week so far. We had a complete dumpster fire on Tuesday. We're going to kick this podcast. You know what you get today? You get Krabby Patty. The rest of the show, the next hour or so that you're going to spend with us, you get Krabby Patty. I'm pissed off.
No!
And we've got a whole bunch of shit to talk about. We got Tigers. We're going to do a great Jock Jams segment where I give you my take on the wonderful world of sports. But we're going to jumpstart this son of a gun with some Red Wings talk.
Now,
Good
exactly.
God.
We're going to talk about the Red Wings, but I'm going to add to your crabbiness in that I text you earlier today.
Right.
And I messaged you because I finally, from time to time, we'll read the newspapers, we'll check online, we'll check Facebook. So this morning, I get a message and I see it on Facebook, and it says that at Game 4, before the game, Golden Tate decided to take a video message and wish the Detroit Red Wings great luck. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. So I'm like, okay, what's the first thing you think of? I'm like, what a jinx. Because the Red Wings played so bad, took a lot of penalties. They looked like they were stuck in the mud the first period, and Tampa Bay was just able to get out to that early lead. But I was like, why did they let the Lions into the building? It had to be a jinx. And you're just poo-poo gave me the Matthew Stafford politically correct answer was like, the fans and the players around town, they all support each other, and it's not a jinx. Of course it was a jinx. The Lions showed up in the building. There's an explanation. You got to be kidding me. They should not have let the Lions anywhere near Joe Louis Arena or indiscreetly. Why are you taking videos wishing the Red Wings luck?
You do realize that the Red Wings are absolutely atrocious. You realize this, right?
I saw Game 3 where they played really good.
Yeah, but they can't put two games back-to-back together. They're atrocious. Henrik Zetterberg is garbage. Pavel Datsyuk is murdering this team. Nick Kronwall, do you have cement for feet, bro? Honestly, could you be out there for more goals? You're not going to play Anthony Mantha, which makes absolutely no sense to me because he's a -6. Meanwhile, you're going to parade out Henrik Zetterberg, who's a -15. -15. And you're going to sit there and you're going to play Nicholas Kronwall, who's your number one defenseman, who's a -21 on the season. Get the hell out of here. These guys are absolute garbage. On top of that, you're going to sit there and you're going to play them over 20 minutes a game? These asshats can't even skate out there. They can't even skate. You've got guys like Double A, you've got Dylan Larkin, you got these guys who have wheels, who can sit there and make plays happen, cause penalties, make a little bit of a ruckus. And you're going to give them 12 minutes, maybe 15? But you're going to sit there and you're going to run Zetterberg into the ground because he's got nothing left. Honestly, he's slow. He makes me look fast, and I'm not built for speed. I'm built for power, baby. On top of that, you've got Datsyuk, who, honestly, he's got about 3 feet out the door already. Like, he is checked out. I don't even know if he's going to pack up his equipment and head back to Russia. He's already got the plane ticket. He's just waiting. He's going to sit there and send an email to Pete Van Zandt and be like, hey, I left you a UPS label. Just ship that shit to Russia for me. That's what I need you to do because I'm already gone. And honestly, we've got, 3 years left on Nicholas Kronwall's deal? Honestly, he looks like he's about to die out there. He's whiffing on pucks, passing it to nobody, gets lost in the play. all you ever see, you know who's got the best view of goals that go in? It's Nicholas Kronwall, because he's watching them as they skate past him and dump the puck in behind Howard or Mrazek. Absolutely atrocious.
No, I definitely get that you're frustrated, but the first culprit that you have to realize after, when looking at game 4 is it's a tie game. It's 2-2 in the third period. It's tight. Every shift is going to be important. Every player out there cannot make mistakes. Who makes the key mistake late in the third period? It's Jonathan Ericsson. And this is a player that has been really examined and looked at as a player that's really hurt this team. A guy with that size as a defenseman should be much further along in his career than he is. And he made the key mistake, took the penalty, and that goal was, tic-tac passing, and boom, they basically put it into an empty net. Jonathan Ericsson, in that situation, has to take a lot of blame in that game, but you said it absolutely correct. Everybody has to do a lot better.
What about Nicholas Kronwall? He's sitting there whiffing at a puck that is sent to Palat, and right behind Palat is Boyle. You've got two guys surrounding your crease. And where's Kronwall? He's watching the back of these guys. He knows exactly who's scoring the goals because he can read the numbers. He can taste the sweat off their back. Everybody's atrocious. Who do you think's their best defenseman on this team? If you had to pick one guy who you would say, hey, who's their number one defenseman?
I mean, Brendan Smith is a guy that's physical, can do the job. Well, obviously, the young with the youth and potential, it's DeKaiser. He's the best. He's the best defenseman you got.
And honestly, you're absolutely right. It is Dan DeKaiser. And on other teams, if you were to look at maybe a Chicago, a St. Louis, other playoff teams, he's maybe a third, fourth option.
5-6, yeah,
exactly. And that's how this defense is now set up. It's so porous. And you're stuck with these horrible contracts with these horrible players who are on the downside of their careers. I can't tell you the last time Hank Zetterberg has given you anything in the playoffs, because it seems like he gasses himself in the regular season. Shows up playoff time, he's got nothing left to give you.
Hey, he kicked the puck in the net game too.
Yeah, well, okay, hey, good job. You got some puck luck there. What has Pavel Datsyuk done? Absolutely nothing. He just looks frustrated out there. Every time he goes to touch the puck, he's got a stick on him and he's complaining to a referee. Keep your damn head in the game. Fight through it. Do something. And then you got guys like Tatar and Nyquist, these guys who are supposed to be the guys who the torch gets passed to. They're basically invisible out there. Hey, thank God. Nyquist got a goal on Tuesday evening. Thank God. What was that, your first one in 30, 35 days, 40 days? I mean, dude, you score less than Vinny Stubbs does. And let's talk about scoring. That power play, what is it now, 1 for 21? And the one that you got, it's like Vinny Stubbs picking up chicks at whatever Redford swill place that he goes to hang out at. Honestly, it's Debbie Downriver who's sitting there, has got her greasy little hair, and she's got the birthday sash on, and she's missing her right shoe because she's so hammered, and she's picking through the ashtray looking for some unsmoked cigarette butts. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. What is going on here? And that's your power play goal that you get. Awful. Absolutely awful. This team has put together an effort that is collectively what newborn babies leave in diapers.
Absolutely atrocious. And it's killed them this series. Now I can see you're frustrated. Everyone around town watched that game and was really excited to see if Abdelkader and Boyle were going to go at it, carry over the momentum. What was most disappointing to you? Is it collectively that the team as a whole is not playing to its capabilities, or that in game 4 you saw that they weren't even ready to play? You saw a Tampa Bay team that was more hungry, and you saw them, come out there and dictate play and were able to get that first goal. You would think at this point in time that effort and getting ready to start the game is not something that should be a problem at this point in the season, but it is.
It's got to be the letdowns between games. I mean, like you said, you put a great effort forth in game 3. You show up, you sit there, you take the puck to the net, you battle, you fight, you scrap it out, and you come away with a really good win. You look dominant that entire game. You come back the following game, and it looks like you're all, like you said, stuck in the mud. Like you have cement for feet. You're not generating any shots. You're not really generating any offense. If you look at some of the goals that were scored, the one was a total breakdown on the defensive end, and Gus Nyquist got a gift. I mean, let's be honest about it. He got a gift. And you look at the offensive goals that were scored by Tampa. I mean, they do absolutely nothing 5-on-5, but they get on the power play and they're eating you alive. And that's just because you've got guys sitting there spinning around like a top. So you're not playing sound positionally. I don't know if this is more on the coaching staff or if this is more on the players, but everybody in that locker room needs to take notice of what is going on and be held accountable here, because it's absolutely atrocious right now.
Yeah, it does me no good to hear Zetterberg, to hear Kronwall in press conferences saying, oh, we're angry, we're frustrated. Show it on the ice.
Right.
Be consistent. Go out there and represent the hockey club. But listen, I'm not as frustrated as you are. I'm not frustrated as you are because we said that, we both picked the Red Wings to win the series, but we both knew that Tampa Bay had a better team, and we were more thinking that it wasn't going to be because the Red Wings were just going to out-talent the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was going to be because they were going to really suffer with those key injuries. But collectively, 1 through 25, the roster on Tampa Bay is just better than the roster 1 through 25 on the Red Wings. I mean, that top line of Tampa Bay is lighting it up. You cannot stop that top line. They're getting goals left and right. They basically dictate play. They have a more talented team. And what bothers me more and what chaps me and what I talked about on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast was the fact that you could have had a Tampa Bay type team. The guy that's running that team, the general manager, Stevie Yzerman, was a guy that's connected to your organization. So he took his talents, went to Tampa Bay, and now has built a team that for 2 years in a row is going to knock you out of the playoffs. And so then you go, oh boy, did we really let go of someone that could be a future Hall of Fame general manager? And did we just stick with someone because of loyalty? Did we stick with someone? Were we not thinking ahead in the right ways? Maybe, just maybe. And what bothers me is I think Stevie Yzerman should be the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. It's one of those things where, no disrespect to Kenny Holland, but he's built a better team, and he's making you guys look small and silly in 2 straight playoff series, and that's quite disappointing. That's what hurts me more.
Before we crown Stevie Y, I want to see what happens this offseason because there's a whole lot that's going to change in Tampa Bay. Steve Yzerman actually really lucked up when he took that job. They were bad the year before he got there, so he got a nice draft pick, and he was able to go in there and set things up really well. On top of that, he's done a good job managing that salary cap. I think that his true test is what he did with Jonathan Drouin this past season by not trading him, sending him down to the minors. When he didn't sit there and show up to the minors, he sat there and said, that's fine. You just won't play then. And in the end, Jonathan Drouin has showed up. Honestly, he's been a complete game changer. Him and Tyler Johnson are 2 of 4 guys that are totally killing your Detroit Red Wings right now. So before we crown Steve Yzerman, I want to see what happens this year.
All right,
this offseason.
So we got some heat now on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, and I'll ask you.
I love heat.
Yes, it's good. We got, when the playoff time comes, people do step up and they do share a lot of opinions with us. And right away, I threw out the question, and I'll throw it out to you. Down 3-1. We've coming off now. The Red Wings have been consistent in getting to the postseason, but for several seasons now, they haven't advanced deep. Do you think now that it's time to maybe lose confidence in this core? And my question that I put on Twitter was, should the Red Wings completely rebuild if they lose the series to Tampa Bay? And I'll get some of the Twitter reaction in a few minutes after I get your thoughts. Is it time to maybe say, wow, maybe Tatar Nyquist, maybe Helm, maybe Abdelkader, maybe this young group of guys isn't it, and it's time to completely blow this thing up? Because I don't see anybody that looks to me where their stock is rising other than Larkin and AA. Everybody else, and you got to keep, role players maybe like a Helm and an Abdelkader, but everybody else, I could say we could part ways with and start over, maybe miss a year or two in the postseason if the goal is to broom everybody out and rebuild to build back a team that can win the Stanley Cup. Is it time to blow this bad boy up?
You know what? You make a lot of good points because when you look at this team and you look at it for what it is, there's a lot of guys who are really expendable. Like, I love Henrik Zetterberg, right? I paid, I think, $600 for a signed autographed jersey with an authenticity letter next to it. And I hang it up in my living room. I love the guy. I think he's great, but he's not contributing. So this is a business world. Trade him away. If you look at this defense, you're not getting anything out of it. Honestly, the defense needs to be overhauled. All of it does. Absolutely all of it does. So, yeah, if you have to start trading some pieces away, I'm okay with that. What I don't understand, you have a guy in your minor league system who is helping on the power play, and the power play was clicking when he was out there. Now, he maybe didn't play great defensively in 5-on-5 situations, and you need that during the playoffs. I understand that. But your power play has totally murdered you and killed you and hamstrung you this entire playoff series. So you send him down to the minors. Mind you, the whole key of getting in is to get these guys, get the young guys, a little bit of an education when what comes with the playoffs. I mean, you've seen it with Dylan Larkin. Dylan Larkin looked totally lost game 1. Game 2, he was a totally different player. Game 3, he showed up. Game 4, he got pushed around a little bit, but he's learning. Same thing with Anthony Ciu. You've seen it. The spotlight's not too big for him. So you got a guy like Anthony Mantha hanging out in your minor leagues doing what? What is he learning right now? Instead of playing guys like Mantha, Anthony Ciu, Larkin, instead of playing them in primetime, crunch time minutes, you're going to sit there and you're going to run out Pavel Datsyuk, who's a step slow. Henrik Zetterberg, who's lost 3 steps. Makes me look fast. Nicholas Kronwall, who spins around like a goddamn top. You're going to run these guys out there and do what? They're doing absolutely nothing. They're costing you games. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand why the young guys aren't playing more. To wrap it back around to your point, yes, if you have to sit there and you have to blow it up a little bit, I'm fine with that. I don't think you have to do a complete, just trade everything away and only keep Larkin, only keep Anthony Ciu, only keep Marchenko.
Helman Abdicator, right?
Right. I don't think you have to do that. But yeah, you need to change some pieces here. There has to be a shakeup because honestly, Henrik Zetterberg looks like he's just getting fat right now. Like just kind of like, yeah, we made it. Hey, I helped bring a championship here once. Same thing with Pavel Datsyuk. I was part of 2 championships that were won here. Okay, so what? What have you done for me lately? You've done nothing but suck up cap space.
Because I think the thing that we talked about, and we did bring it up on our last edition of this podcast, is the Red Wings, in terms of the coaches and upper management, really believe that maybe they were better than they really are. I mean, if you really believe that these veterans are going to take you far in the postseason, then you make it. You ride with the veterans, as most coaches and management will do. You definitely go with people that you trust in veteran-type situations. I understand that. But if you have foresight, if you have the willingness to say, you know what, we're probably going to lose this series to Tampa anyway. Let's just roll out the young guys, let them get experience. Hell, you don't think you could go 1 for 21 with Anthony Mantha on the ice?
Exactly.
You don't think you could give up bad goals late in games with Anthony Mantha there? At least he'd get that experience, and then in a year or two, he'll be further along. So the idea is not to come out and hammer it down. Both Mickey Redmond and Paul Woods did something after they won that Game 3 that pissed me off. They both tried to come out and kind of, snidely say that, hey, all you fans out there that are asking for AA more and Mantha more, look, they put in a guy like Anderson. He contributed that goal, and look, these guys know what they're doing. Well, look at us now. We're down 3-1. So I didn't see that happen after Game 4 when you lost. The organization setting up an us versus them mentality when the situation is this. Recognize the fact that really going into the postseason, nobody picked the Red Wings to even advance out of this series. Nobody picked them to even come close to get to the Stanley Cup. They basically were relegated to be a bold prediction to get to the finals. So you just roll out with the youngsters. Roll it out. Go all the way with it. I don't think anybody would have hammered them if they even got swept. If you roll out a group of young guys, let them go out there, do their thing, and be eliminated. But now this is worse because you've made the choice now to roll with your veterans, and they've stunk it up. They're in a situation where they're down 3-1, staring at elimination with the decisions that you made. And they're terrible. They're not. It doesn't work this way. It doesn't work where you get to say, we're going to bring along a youth movement, and then in crunch time, we're going to go back to the veterans. And then in the end, the veterans are absolutely crushing this team.
This team and this organization has gone with the half in the pool, half out of the pool philosophy for the last 6 years. And all it's doing is it's costing them in the long run. Because if you would have started playing some of your young talent, brought them up, you succeed and you fail with them. That's how they get experience. That's how you do it. You obviously have either overestimated or you've completely missed on the talent that you have up here right now. Gus Nyquist and Thomas Tatar and Thomas Yurko were supposed to be those guys who sit there and alleviate some of that pressure from a guy like a Henrik Zetterberg, a Pavel Datsyuk. It really hasn't panned out that well, especially not in playoff times. Gus Nyquist and Thomas Tatar had really nice seasons last year. This year was a little bit of a struggle, but if you go back to last year's playoff, they didn't really score all that much either then. And usually when the game gets a little bit tight, they usually don't produce as well as they should. So you have obviously overestimated what you have there skill-wise. So bring up some of the young kids. Sink or swim with them. Don't play this half in the pool, half out of the pool, and sit there and relegate a guy who you've been touting in your minor league system as the future for years now. If I have to hear about how great Anthony Mantha is going to be one more damn time, I might just eat a bullet because I can't handle it anymore. Because where the hell is he right now? Where is he? You know what? He's in Grand Rapids. Doing what? Trying to chase a Calder Cup? I don't even know if they're in the Calder Cup playoffs right now. I mean, come on. Honestly, what the hell is going on here? And Ken Holland, you've done nothing but saddle this team with bad contracts and horrible trades year after year after year. You basically have done nothing since 2007, 2008. That's the last time you've done anything that's been impactful for this team. Yes, you want to say you drafted Dylan Larkin. Good job. You had scouts who could sit there and recognize that this guy is going to be a phenom. I mean, as he was sitting there just slicing and dicing pretty much everybody in the college game and while he was playing high school hockey. Yes, you're absolutely right. Good job there. Way to get that one right. But what the hell else have you done for me lately?
Let's check in with the reaction from our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. We got a lot of reaction from that question. Should the Red Wings completely rebuild if they lose the series versus Tampa Bay? Our Twitter page, you can follow us. Check out all the great hijinks and hilarity at Detroit Podcast. Fire Brad Ausmus chimes in. Yes, they will not go far with the small, sometimes skilled forwards they have and sketchy defense. John Victor writes in, no, let the young guys develop and learn from the experience of this series and build off of that for the future. Hashtag Free Mantha gets in. Rebuild the staff first, starting with head coach and special teams. We will never win a playoff series with Jeff Blashill. And Brendan Reed goes, Holland looked absolutely disgusted after that Game 4 loss. So again, mixed reactions. A lot of people are hesitant to kind of maybe let go of the guys that they build attachments to. But if you really look objectively, I don't think when you start to now add up the pieces and you start to look collectively as a unit, this Red Wing team collectively is going to go far compared to the other talent in the National Hockey League in the Eastern Conference. I mean, you think Tampa Bay is going to get all that much worse? I mean, they got a young core. They got a great goaltender who arguably now has playoff experience and is a guy that's owned you now in 2 postseasons. And we haven't even gotten yet to the cream of the crop in the Eastern Conference. You haven't even faced yet the tough teams like the Rangers and things like that in a postseason. You know, I would love to see a matchup with the Red Wings versus King Lundqvist, but it's going to be hard to get out of the first round if when it comes to something special like special teams and you go 1 for 21, it ain't going to happen.
On top of that, you're not even playing a full-strength Tampa Bay team right now. I mean, they don't have their offensive leader and they don't have their defensive leader. So they're doing this with their secondary players, guys that they maybe don't lean on as heavily. You know, I mean, you don't have Strawman, you don't have Stamkos out there, and this team is still putting up points and still blistering your Red Wings. That's what makes it even worse. You're not even good enough as a team and as a collective unit that is relatively healthy to sit there and go against a team that is banged up, beat up, and is missing their 2 key star players on both sides of the ice. And you still can't get it done.
Because that first line is unbelievable. And Tyler Johnson has been relegated to not too much the last couple games. You know, it's just been a situation where, you know, you make those key mistakes late. And this is what I want to ask you next. Do you see a potential for this team to come back to the Joe and get it back to 3-3? I mean, it's going to take quite a bit of improvement, but I do believe you have a chance with Mrazek in net and coming back to game, it would be game 6 if they come back to the Joe. Do you see a scenario where they tie the series up and go back to Tampa Bay to get the win?
I think it's...
Or is the series over?
I think it's possible, but I'm going to be realistic with you. This series is done. They've got roughly an 8% chance to sit there and win the series at this point. So Tampa Bay is going to have to fall completely on their face. Do I think they can go into Tampa and do I think they can get a win? I think it's possible. I don't think it's outrageous. If they show up and they play heavy on their sticks and they play physical and they get pucks to the net and they get traffic to the net, yeah, they've got a great shot. But they've only done that in 1 game thus far this season, or this series. This team is completely frustrating because they have the pieces and they have the talent that if they just showed up and they played that way every single night, they would sit there and be a dominant force against this beat-up Tampa Bay team. But I do think it's possible. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Tampa Bay smells blood in the water. They're going to sit there. They're going to come out, and I believe that this series goes 5 games. Tampa ends up winning it 4-1 overall.
No more wins for the Red Wings, huh?
No. There's blood in the water right now, man. And you know what? You're going to get your best game from the Wings coming up in Game 5 because they have to. They have to. But over the course of the last 6 years, I've seen this play out time and time again. You know, their backs against the wall. This is a game they have to win, and they can't seal the deal. You've seen it during the regular season. All they had to do was win one more game. They couldn't pull that off. They backed into the playoffs. You know, this team doesn't have the firepower. It doesn't have the willpower to be able to do it.
Heidi Adams chimes in. Yes, general manager must go. We are not a first round and out team. Some big paid players must go bye-bye. They aren't earning.
Now, the thing with that, who do you want to come in as the general manager? I know you want Stevie Y, but he's got a real cush job in Tampa Bay right now.
It's not a bad gig, huh?
Right, exactly. Plus, he gets real nice weather.
And no state income tax.
See, there you go. You got that as well.
More cha-ching in your pockets.
And who's going to want a contract like Henrik Zetterberg's? Who's going to want a Nicholas Kronwall after the past season that they both have had? You know, guys don't want them. Teams don't want them because their time is basically done. The thing is, if you remember when Steve Yzerman was here and he was basically playing hockey on one leg, he was relegated to primarily taking faceoffs and playing on a third line. That was what he did. That was his job. That's all he could really provide to this team, that and some leadership on the inside. A guy like Henrik Zetterberg, who basically looks like he's out there playing on one leg, he's your number one forward. He's your big gun. That's a problem. Whether it be a coaching staff problem, whether it be a talent issue, whether that be Zetterberg can't get out of his own way and say, hey, coach, maybe we should change this up a little bit. Maybe we should play somebody else up top. There's all kinds of issues that you can sit there and delve into right there because it's not just one-sided. There's a whole lot going on here. It's like an onion. You just got to peel it back and you just look at all the layers and all the issues here. It's not like it used to be. This team is so reliant on a guy like Henrik Zetterberg, a Pavel Datsyuk, a Nicholas Kronwall. In the game, honestly, at this point in their careers, has passed them by. They should be relegated to third-line pairings. Instead, these are your number one offensive and defensive players. It's just a bad job all the way around. This team has multiple issues, and whether it's coming from the top down with the general manager, Ken Holland, whether it's the new coach who sometimes that just looks totally lost out there, and other times he looks like a genius. It's really weird. He's bipolar right now. Or if it's just the players themselves not showing up and not doing what needs to be done or being able to even perform at that level anymore. It's just, there is so much wrong with this team right now.
You're saying that even if they do get back to Detroit, they don't even deserve it. It's just a situation where Tampa Bay's playing better. They got more talented, and they're basically out. I would say Cooper's out coaching Blashill.
I agree. If you can push it to a game 7, I mean, hey, you deserve it. If you can win a series, you deserve it. I'm not going to tell you that you don't. My big issue is you got to look past what's going on the ice. There are more issues here. There are bigger things going on that have to be discussed and has to be looked at because Henrik Zetterberg's, honestly, he shouldn't be your number one center. You know, he really should. He should be your third line guy. Instead, he's put out there in crunch time. He's on the power play, and the guy's having trouble getting the puck across the blue line. So guys are going off sides left and right because he can't skate anymore. He's not quick. He's not fast. You know, you got to change it up a little bit. So whether that falls on Blashill or whether that falls on Zetterberg, I'm not sure. It might just be one of those things where Zetterberg's like, look, you got to put me here. I need to play this. And if you're a coach, you want your players to be boisterous like that. You want to listen to your players. And, you know, Zetterberg at this moment in his career has earned the right to sit there and say, I want to do this. I feel I can help this team doing this. And as a new head coach, you're going to probably listen to your captain. There's a reason why he wears the C. At the same point, you as the head coach, if you're not seeing the results, you got to step in. You got to say, you know what? I like that attitude. Stay warm for me. All right. We're going to try something different because right now I'm getting crucified out there in the media and the fans want my head and I look like a total asshat. So I'm going to try this. Let's go this route. Something has to change. There's, like I said, it's multiple layers.
Yeah.
It's not one thing. You can't just bring one guy in here and it's all going to change. There has to be an overhaul on both the offensive and defensive side. I think Jeff Blashill's a very good coach. I think he will be a good coach. I thought it was ballsy the way he handled Game 3, basically swapping out his goaltender because Jimmy Howard hadn't played bad. He had given up maybe 1, maybe 2 bad goals, but he really hadn't played bad. He wasn't the reason they were losing those games. It was the offense and the defense that was costing them games. And he sat there and made a lot of changes, and it worked. I mean, they played inspired hockey Game 3. Game 4, they come out, they look completely flat. They're like pop that you left out in the sun for way too long, completely flat. And that power play is letting you down like bad Viagra.
Now,
honestly.
just to flip the script, though, they were in the game late, 2-2. They were down 2-0 in the second period. They come back, get those 2 quick goals, and they were able to kind of get back in the game. They had a power play opportunity, and they didn't capitalize. Dylan Larkin went post to post in an unbelievable move. Just a couple bounces. And the quick thought I want to ask you before we move on into Jock Jams is, do you see a little bit of a relationship between skill and puck luck? I mean, Tampa Bay takes advantage of their late power play. They move the puck well. They get it down in the zone. Boom, make the tic-tac-toe pass. Basically get it, expose the Wings defense and get an empty net goal, basically. So then the Red Wings, they get that same opportunity. Dylan Larkin, just, a little bit of youth and inexperience, wasn't able to finish that goal, hits the post, and it's one of those things where Tampa Bay's more skilled players were actually a little bit luckier.
I think the Wings are pressing a little bit. I think they feel the pressure now. And I think there is a correlation between skill and puck luck because you're going to generate chances and those pucks are going to come off the boards or they're going to come off the pads or they're going to come off another player. And if you're in the right position, you're going to get that opportunity and everybody looks at it like it's puck luck. So yes, there is some correlation there. I think Tampa Bay is much more skilled than the Detroit Red Wings, and I think the Wings are pressing a little bit. Prime example, Dylan Larkin makes great play, skates in, has the whole short side to shoot at. Instead, he passes to Henrik Zetterberg. Beautiful pass. 9 times out of 10, it's going to work. Valtteri Filppula comes back and breaks up the play, gets a piece of it. The puck ends up going over Zetterberg's stick, and they end up sitting there like, oh, man, another missed opportunity. So, yeah, there is some puck luck, but skill does play a part here. It's just, I think the Wings are pressing. I think they're feeling the pressure, and I don't think they have it. They don't have the extra gear that Tampa Bay does. Thank you for listening to me rant and rave. Get that all off my chest.
Stay with us. We'll be back. We're going to play a round of Jock Jams, talk about the Detroit Tigers, and we're going to definitely discuss a CBS mock draft going forward. Doc and Jock, episode 141, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wing shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain, break the whole damn table.
DetroitSportsPodcast.com, Doc and Jock, episode 141, rolling along. Thank you for everyone that's been supporting us, downloading our many podcasts on this fine platform, whether you're going to Podomatic, Stitcher, Podbay, our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com, whether you find our podcast at DetroitSportsNation.com. There should be no reason why you don't find this great podcast. We're getting lots of support, lots of engagement, and this is a great time of year, April in the D, to be a Detroit sports fan, and we love doing this podcast each and every week. Comes out every Thursday. You definitely can check out Adam on the WXYZ web show. Very fun. The last episode was great. We post it every single Monday when it comes out. It was very funny this week. I thought some of the responses and engagement that you get has been utterly hilarious. And we get some too. We get like Fire Brad Osmus, we get Free Mantha. There are some people that really enjoy checking us out. And I think when we tweet out stuff, we definitely get some of the very interesting characters out there in the internet landscape.
Dude, the people on Twitter are outstanding.
It's good
outstanding.
Stuff. Good stuff. All right. This is Jock Jams, where the Doc has 3 great questions lined up and Adam is ready to deliver what we call Jock Jams. Game 1, the Pistons hung in there with the Cleveland Cavaliers. A lot of people are like, oh, good job. And I was one of them. Hey, you hung in there. You didn't roll over. You played with them for 3 quarters, but in the end, money time, baby. You didn't show up in crunch time. And it really goes back to, and everyone's pointing out the lack of experience and leadership from Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond. They come back now for game 2. What is it now? A week later, basically? It seems like the
That's
NBA.
what it feels like, right?
Yeah. Sunday, Wednesday. Come on, dude. Let them go. Sunday, Tuesday. What's with all this time delay? My goodness. But a lot of talking points from game 1. We do have to talk about it a little bit. But first question, Jock Jams. Which Piston has to play much better for this team to upset Cleveland in this series?
It's got to be Reggie Jackson. That team was rocking and rolling in the very beginning of this series. There was good ball movement. They were getting good shots. They were getting good looks at the basket. Final 5 minutes, I don't know if some of the no calls, I don't know if it was just Reggie trying to play hero basketball in that first game. It just like he shut down. And when he shuts down, that offense shuts down. Reggie Jackson has to be the difference maker in this team and in this series for the Pistons to sit there and try to pull an upset over Cleveland. He's got to be better with the ball. He's got to make better decisions. You can't sit there in close games, go and get a technical foul. You can't do that. You got to sit there. You can't dribble the ball into the corner, basically dribble out the shot clock and then heave one up. You got to keep getting your guys involved. And we've seen this all year long from Reggie Jackson. When he is motivated and he's moving the ball around well and getting the other players involved in the offense, they can sit there and hang with anybody. You see, they hung with Golden State and they beat Golden State. When Reggie Jackson wants to play hero basketball, the whole offense shuts down. On top of that, I think Andre Drummond has to show up a little bit more. I thought he looked really soft in game 1. he's got to be more of an offensive and defensive presence out there. I think he did okay from the free throw line. I mean, it wasn't great. You're not expecting anything magical from this guy. I would like him to hit somewhere close to 50% when he's at the line, but whatever. I'll take what I get from him at this point. I just need you to be more of a force on the offensive glass, and I need you to be more of a force offensively as well as playing defense. Too many pick and rolls where you got stuck looking at Kevin Love sitting there hitting three-pointers. So Reggie Jackson's the one guy who's got to play better and be a better leader overall, but I'd like to see some more gusto because I thought Andre Drummond looked really soft early on.
I don't know, man. After that first game, you gave him really a game that was pretty awesome. Your best game, I think. I don't think they're going to play like that again. I don't know. It might be a sweep.
How often does a team in the offense shoot 50%? That hardly ever happens.
Walk away with a victory.
Exactly. So you can't turn the ball over. You got to be more responsible. I think they'll cause headaches and they'll cause fits. I don't know if they're going to get a W. I thought game 1 was probably their best opportunity to sit there and run away with a win.
And looking at the other NBA series out there, you obviously have to look at what Golden State's doing. And everybody was like, oh, they basically could roll out there and half-ass it and beat the Houston Rockets. Well, after game 1, Steph Curry gets hurt. And they have to go out there versus game 2. Were they able to dominate Houston? Of course they were. They make Houston look soft. They make Houston look terrible. Basically, everyone's exposed. James Harden and Dwight Howard are exposed as a team that's just fraudulent and that you can't win with them. But in your opinion, and looking at Golden State, do they have to win the NBA title to validate their awesome 73-9 season and cement their place as a great team? That record is outstanding. I never thought I'd see a season where I remember that 72-10 season with the Bulls, and just now in 2016, they broke the record. Do they have to win the title to cement them as one of the best teams of all time?
73 wins, going 73-9, great accomplishment.
Wow.
But if you don't win a championship, you're just kind of looked at like, well, you were good during the regular season, but when it counted, you didn't get the job done. That's what made that whole 72-10 season for the Chicago Bulls so magical. Because they sat there the season before, they won 69, won the championship. Come back the next year, win 72, win the championship. The next season, they win a championship again. I don't need this team to three-peat, but to sit there and validate their 73 wins and their place as probably the greatest team ever, yes, I need you to go and win a championship. Otherwise, it kind of diminishes the 73 victories. And I know that sounds a little bit harsh because what they did, highly improbable. I mean, if you would have sat there in the beginning of the NBA season, came and told either one of us, say, hey, one team out there is going to win 73 games, I think we both would have looked at you and be like, you're smoking crack. Like, there's no way. Like, 72 was a challenge, and you had probably the best player ever in the NBA with Michael Jordan. On top of that, that team was stacked. You had Scottie Pippen, who's a great number 2, and you had Dennis Rodman. I love Dennis Rodman. He was crazy as shit. I loved him, though. So, I mean, that team was out. You had Steve Kerr. Don't forget about Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr used to hit daggers from downtown. That team would be in a little bit of a bind. Jordan would penetrate, kick out to Steve Kerr, swish. So, yes, I think they have to. They absolutely have to because it diminishes the quality of the 73 victories then. They'll go down as a great team, but you need the championship to sit there and really validate that.
Now, did you hear? The Detroit Lions installed the new gym equipment in there, so everyone's going to be hulking up. They're going to use that money they get from the fans, and they're going to put it into the gym and facilities and nutritionists and all that. And they were definitely quick to point out all those pictures, like look at all our gear and swag and stuff like that. I was like, really? I don't know. I feel like a hater when I saw that picture. Mm-hmm. I felt like, shouldn't you already have that as kind of like a standard operating procedure? Did that really cost you the extra money that you're going to get from the fans?
You would think,
gym?
Right? You would think. Honestly, you do realize how much money they bring in from their television contracts, right? It's like in the billions.
I felt like there should be like robots. Ridiculous. They should have some more gadgetry or something. Basically, you look like you got brand new gear that should be already been there.
Yeah. It's the way this Lions team operates.
And I love the pictures of Stafford lifting the weights and all the definitely the 150 curls. Oh, wow. I'm really impressed.
The worst part is they take all of you Lions fans as idiots. Like, oh, this is what we paid for. This is great. This is going to make this team that much better. Not realizing that they had equipment and that they had other things. They just want newer stuff and they want to make more money. So they're going to sit there and jack up your season ticket prices.
Well, to keep the hate train rolling, I picked him at 10-6 when I saw the schedule, not because of the play of the Lions, but because the opponents are probably worse than the Lions are.
Right.
10-6. Ooh, that schedule it looks really easy. Whoo, Saints, Jaguars, Titans. They put some cupcakes on there. Woohoo! It pays to have a bad year.
I was going to say, that's what happens when you come off an atrocious year. So, yeah, it happens.
Last and final question on Jock Jams. I had to do it. The Texans last season were on HBO Hard Knocks. Bill O'Brien, former quarterbacks coach at New England, has experience working with quarterbacks, and he came out and said that I don't know why, no one's talking about our quarterbacks, Mallet and Brian Hoyer. And in the end, it showed why nobody cared about them and why they struggled so much. They just shuffled Hoyer and Mallet back and forth whenever Mallet would show up to practice and set his alarm before he got cut.
Was he out by week 4?
He was
week 4, week 6.
He was gone
Brian
quick.
Mallett was gone.
Yeah, he was gone, dude. He missed so many. Even on Hard Knocks, he missed practice and was like, sorry. And then I think he overslept again, missed a flight.
Yep.
So some weird stuff with Ryan Mallett before he was let go. But Brian Hoyer got the axe, was cut by the Houston Texans. So I threw it out there on our Twitter page. Should the Lions bring Brian Hoyer in as a backup, potentially to maybe be the guy that actually could push Matthew Stafford? Our Twitter page was not having it. At Detroit Podcast said, hell to the no. 65% of the voters said, hell no. Don't bring Brian Hoyer in here. I didn't say bring him in here to start. Just be a guy that if Stafford has something go down with him, be a guy that you could bring in here. What do you think?
Absolutely. Maybe I'm going to run counter to what our Twitter page says, but absolutely. I mean, this is a guy who basically helped the Texans get into the playoffs last year. He's won games in the National Football League. Dan Orlovsky, I don't think really has. On top of that, this guy has played big games. He's played in a playoff game. Granted, he threw like 5 interceptions that playoff game, but he's played in big games. All you need him to do is come in, because let's work through this, okay? If Matt Stafford goes down today, he's done for the season, right? Blows out his ACL on both knees, and he can't walk for a while. Who's your quarterback?
Dan Orlovsky.
Okay, do you feel confident in the season with Dan Orlovsky at the helm?
Heck to the no. Hell no. I would think that every single game would be a challenge.
Would you feel a little bit better if Brian Hoyer was at the helm?
I would feel not as great. I would still think that the drop-off would be huge.
Yes.
But I would like Brian Hoyer with his experience and his ability, maybe if he did grow and advance his skills maybe 5-10% working with this unit, I would think he could be serviceable.
I agree. The guy has thrown touchdowns. He's played big. I think if you put him in a system, you let him learn the playbook, and you don't expect a lot out of hhim, I think he does just fine. Going into that playoff game, I think they expected him to sit there and perform, and I think he crumbles underneath that pressure. Yeah,
my thinking is this. I mean, the way I look at it is a guy wanted? And when I heard the first report, and it might be agent speak, it might be just, this could be fabricated just to get his name out there, but the first thing I heard was he was slotted to go to Pittsburgh. They really wanted him. So if he's good enough to be looked at and recruited by the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's not good enough to be recruited by the Detroit Lions. Come on now. I'd say that he's just an upgrade over Dan Orlovsky. No doubt about it. I wouldn't have a doubt that he's an upgrade. And I wouldn't say that I'd want him to be the starter of the team. I just want someone that could finally push Matthew Stafford. And they're probably going to do it through the draft. But if they went out and got Hoyer, it'd be fine. A good signing. But, they're bringing in the guys, and Jake Rudock, I believe, on Thursday is going to be part of the workout and be brought in with a bunch of other quarterbacks as well. So they're looking at upgrading the quarterback position. I think they'll do that also in the draft.
I mean, not
a bad get to bring in Brian Hoyer.
No, I don't think so. He's a guy who's got 43 career starts compared to a guy like Dan Orlovsky.
But I get it, though, when you stink in the postseason, you put up that performance on film, it turns a lot of people off, and they're like, just screw that. We can get better in the draft.
I understand that. But at the same point, I mean, compared to what you got, compared to what you're working with, and on top of it, it's going to be a little bit cheap. You're going to get him on the cheap. I mean, Dan Orlovsky's played 23 games compared to 43 games. You got a much bigger sample size, and on top of it, Brian Hoyer's actually won you some games. Dan Orlovsky, I don't feel real great about it, man. I still have visions of him getting chased out of the back of the end zone. So, yes, I would absolutely bring Brian Hoyer in.
You get excited for the draft?
I am. I really am.
It'll be a fun week next week for sure.
This mock draft we've got coming up here after we talk some Tigers, 7-rounder, bro. 7-rounder. And I've got some thoughts on what's going to happen in our first round according to this mock draft. I want to sit there and run those by you to see if you kind of get the same feeling. And maybe it's just the way we've been conditioned. You can let me know, as you're the psychologist on this podcast. Let me know if just the years and years of just being beat up as a Lions fan, that's why I feel this way. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into it. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about that here coming up shortly.
Doc and Jock, Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I want to tell everyone out there about DetroitSportsNation.com. They're a great website, and they've been very supportive to all the shows on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. They host all the podcasts. They have great writers that cover all the Detroit teams, all the college teams. Check out their website and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com. The collaboration has been excellent, and it's helped us to continue to grow and have great guests take phone calls. So our collaboration with the Detroit Sports Nation has really been successful, and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com. All right, cuz, in the midst of the playoffs with the Pistons and Red Wings, the Tigers are quietly having an okay start to the season. That first game versus KC left a lot to be desired. I mean, Shane Greene got roughed up. Again, though, no, the Tigers are never really out of the game with that offense. You got to give big props to Jared Saltalamacchia coming in there and just carrying this team on his back. His home runs are meaningful, not just solo dingers in games where you're down 10-0. He's a guy that's hitting with guys on base. He's a guy that's made Miami look stupid for cutting him. I mean, they're paying most of his salary. We got him on the cheap. And this is a guy that's mashing, and you go, James McCann's out? I wouldn't know it based on what we've seen with Saltalamacchia. He's been the story of the season. But that first, this is a measuring stick series versus Kansas City. And I know everyone's like, well, it's still early. You'd rather be playing your best late. Yes, but this is still a series where you can measure where you're at, how you're doing, because Kansas City, another great start to the season. They're playing well. They took it to us that first game.
Most definitely. And like you were saying about Salty, he's got 5 homers. He leads the team in home runs and RBI right now.
Mashing both sides of the plate.
Exactly. And the guy really is helping carry the offense.
Booyah, Shaka Khan. So, my man Salty.
I mean, we're missing James McCann. What? I mean, I don't want to say it like that, but for sure, dude. This series against Kansas City, this is...
Well, before you get to the series...
This is a measuring stick, bro.
Is it too early maybe say Salty could be this everyday catcher? Or is it... still early sample size? He's hot.
He is hot, and I think that makes James McCann's time on the DL okay. Like, you can just, like, James McCann, make sure you're 100% before you come back. Don't rush it. Take your time. If we got to put you on the 15. If you're still not ready to come back right yet, we'll put you on the 7. We'll put you on the 10. Just take your time. All the way up until Salty cools off, and then you can insert James McCann again. I mean, that's kind of how I see it playing out. That's what I would do. But then again, I'm not Brad Ausmus, and I don't work for the Tigers. I'm just a guy who does a podcast with you. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, no, man, this series is huge. Honestly, it's a measuring stick. I really think it's the litmus test. If I have to describe it in one word, it's a litmus test. You're going up against the team that won the World Series last year. They are leading the AL Central right now. They basically took a broomstick handle to you on Tuesday evening, and you sat there, you fought back, and you made it interesting down the stretch there. But absolutely, this early series, I really feel if they can get a big win here, that's going to help carry this team for the next 5 or 10 games. And I know that sounds a little bit weird to say that, but I can see them building off the momentum of beating a good Kansas City Royals team. And it sounds so weird to say that because for years, the Royals were just like dirt on the bottom of your shoe. Like, you would just sit there and laugh. You're like, yeah, that's a win. Chalk it up as a W. Because the Royals were so horrible, but totally different now, man. I mean, they got a decent pitching staff. They got a good bullpen. And, they get timely hitting when they need it. So, huge series. I think they need to get this series win here against Kansas City to sit there and just kind of build off that momentum and help push this team a little bit forward now. I mean, they're third in the AL Central at this time, and, I don't want to say that there are times where they look kind of like, but I just don't have that overwhelming feeling right now with the Tigers. Like, I don't feel like they're going to go win the World Series at this exact moment. I feel like they're going to be in contention for it. I feel like they're going to be in contention for a playoff spot, and we both know once you get in the playoffs in the MLB, it doesn't matter. Just get in. If you get in, you can win. It's real similar to hockey like that. Just get in and you can win. And we've seen it time and time again where horrible St. Louis Cardinal teams have sat there and just eked in the very last day of the season and then go on a run. I mean, here in Detroit, we've seen it firsthand. We've experienced that.
Shane Greene roughed up. Too early to be a little bit nervous. I mean, the big thing is, I understand it's one start. You're playing one of the best teams in the Central, one of the best teams all across Major League Baseball. The thinking is, though, most people have Shane Greene slotted as being a guy that really his skills are best suited to be maybe a closer, maybe a middle reliever, maybe somebody that can be in the bullpen and be a steadying force. A guy that can just go balls to the wall in his one inning of work. By all accounts, he's healthy. He's looked good his first couple starts prior to this one. They won versus Kansas City is one that you want to let go of. He got rocked. But when a pitcher gets rocked, you can still have a bad performance like JV did and only give up 3 runs. He was getting hit pretty good, and so again, it's just one of those situations where Is his stuff starter worthy? It's making me question whether or not I want him out there as the 5th guy. I would say maybe, just maybe, his best spot, bullpen. Too early, or maybe you're starting to shift your thinking about Mr. Shane Greene, number 5 starter?
I think it's a little too early. I really do. I hear what you're saying, and you make great points. Honestly, there's been a number of articles basically saying exactly what you've just stated. He probably should be and is better fitted to be in the bullpen and be a guy who comes out, maybe a long relief guy, maybe a middle innings eater. But again, he's your 5th starter. What do you expect out of your 5th starter? You expect your 5th starter to go out there and give you a chance to win. You know, you're not expecting him to win the game. You're expecting him to give you a chance to win. Get to the 5th, get to the 6th inning. And in his first couple starts, he's looked pretty decent. I think it's just a little bit too early to designate him to the bullpen. I'm going to watch him a little bit more closely going forward. I think he's got some good stuff. Honestly, he's your 5th starter, man. I mean, you're hoping that your 5th starter can give you maybe 10 wins on the year. So he's going to go out there and he's going to basically win you a third of the games that he maybe plays in. You know, and if you're getting 10 wins out of your 5th starter, that's a pretty good starting rotation. You know, most 5th starters give you anywhere from 7 to 8, you know, maybe 9. So if you can get 10 out of the guy, he's already got 1 on the board. I'm going to roll with him. I think he's okay as your 5th starter.
Now, me and Vito talked a little bit about this on the Tigers Talk podcast as well. Comes out every single Wednesday on our network. Brad Ausmus came out a little bit and was a little bit fiery. Was a guy that was just like, listen, he's getting tired of seeing all the base running mistakes like everybody else is. And one of the questions, that talking points that we had that we want to talk about is what surprised you most on this team. What surprised me is the base running is still atrocious. Come on now, it's been well over a season and a half. These are things that are mental. And these are things that can be talked up in terms of situationally. In football, and we watch a ton of it, they have meeting after meeting after meeting. Sometimes they have meetings about meetings. And they try to resolve some of these issues. And
like, you remember that meeting we just had? Let's have another meeting that we just talked about.
Exactly. What are they discussing in between these games with the Detroit Tigers and base running? I mean, he's come out and said that if these mistakes continue, I know it's frustrating, I'm going to start benching people. But the guys that are making it are guys that are, quote unquote, the guys. Ian Kinsler, Nick Castellanos. These are guys that are making mistakes at critical times in games that cost you runs. And in some games, runs are critical, like in that game versus Houston where you get shut out 1-0. You know, you need to kind of understand that you have to be aware mentally of what's going on the diamond. And when you make base running mistakes and try to go home in a situation where there's no outs, what the hell are you doing? Why is it still continuing to be a problem? It's unbelievable. That's what's most surprising to me so far. And stay with it. Stay with us for a couple minutes after Tigers Talk. Breaking news, NFL.
I know. I was going to sit there and surprise you with that.
Oh, shocking. And it will definitely relate back to the Lions as well.
It's going to impact the draft, that's for sure. Yeah, the base running mistakes have been frustrating. On a more positive note, I've been surprised at how well the bullpen has played. Really, if you go back to that one bad inning by K-Rod, the bullpen's been pretty decent. And I think that's been a bright spot for this team. I know Blaine Hardy gave up a run the other night on Tuesday, but other than that, I think that the bullpen's been pretty shut down compared to where we've been at over the course of the last couple seasons, where you would go to your bullpen and next thing you know, you'd have crooked numbers hanging on the board. So you're right. The base running mistakes, I think they have to go because they're costing your team's runs. You're costing the team wins by sitting there getting thrown out at first, getting thrown out at third, getting thrown out as you're trying to steal second. You know, I mean, you can't have those because in the long run, you're going to damage your team and you might end up missing out on the playoffs because this looks like it's going to be a hotly contested AL Central. That being said, the bullpen has been a huge bright spot for me. This was something that we all talked about. We've been talking about it for what seems like an eternity now. It seems like, 4 years now we've been sitting there discussing the bullpen about how atrocious it's been. So I think that's been a bright spot. Again, one bad inning by K-Rod, gave up multiple runs. Other than that, Blaine Hardy gave up one on Tuesday. That's going to happen. You know, over the course of 162 games, it's going to happen. You're going to have guys who give up runs. You just hope that they don't cost you huge games. They were already sitting there trailing, and by the way the score ended up shaping out, that one run didn't cost you the game.
I think it's the time of recording. We got 7 wins up, 5 wins down. I think we're second, third in the division, and it's going to be an important series. I had them going into before the series. I had them losing 2 of 3 anyway. I do believe that Kansas City's a better team, better ball club, but the Tigers should be in there competing with the White Sox and Kansas City throughout the season. It's a fun team to watch, but the buster of the week and me and Vito talked about it. Vito was a little bit, he's more rational like you guys are, but I was like, what the hell's up with Justin Upton, dude? Why is he struggling? Why is he struggling so much in the early part of the season? Why is he getting his ass ejected? When's he going to start mashing? When's he going to start earning the contract? And everyone's like, oh, it's early, da, da, da. I'm just like, come on now. This is a dude that's firmly planted number 2 in the lineup, and he ain't mashing. He ain't, he had that one home run.
He's pressing, man. He's pressing. That's really what it is. Honestly.
Upton needs to kind of turn it around quickly.
He's one of those guys, too, who gets hot in streaks, and then he cools down in streaks. Look, that offense is playing well right now, for the most part. They're in the top, I think, 5 in the major leagues right now with runs produced and hits. So I'm not really worried about Upton right now. You got guys like a guy like Nick Castellanos, whose bat's been really warm. He's looked decent. Everybody in the top 5, top 6 is kind of mashing the ball right now. Kinsler's stayed relatively hot. Cabrera's not yet even heated up yet, but you got guys like Martinez. I know he went down the other night. He got hit with a baseball, so that's cause for concern. But, I mean, Castellanos is showing you something. Salty down at the bottom of the rotation showing you something. I mean, JD Martinez is picking up right where he left off. So I'm not worried about it. When Upton finally comes around, he'll get hot, and he'll stay hot for probably about a month, and then he'll cool off for another month. Again, baseball is one of those weird sports where after 162 games,
it all shakes out.
It all shakes out.
Nicky C, man, he's been mashing, and Brad Ausmus came out, and in a rare situation, he was like, dude, I planned to rest him on Sunday, but he's been mashing, so I got to keep him in there to ride this hot streak. And he's played pretty well, and he's kind of, really earning the respect of myself and a lot of people that follow us and follow the Detroit Tigers. They say, maybe we were a little bit hard on him, but the other aspect is his mental mistakes in his defense still got to catch up. The reason why he's still there and the reason why he hasn't become a pariah is because he's hitting the baseball.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we start highlighting, we start flashing on our screens here behind us on the mics. We start flashing all the errors that he's making at third base and all the balls that just kind of scoop by him when you'd think that an average third baseman would go get it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. His defense needs to improve, and that's been a huge sticking point. But as long as he's mashing the ball, I mean, he's hitting almost 360 right now.
Keep on, brother.
That's outstanding, bro.
Keep flexing.
I mean, but you're right. That's the only thing that's saving him right now because, again, he's a late inning defensive adjustment there. That's usually when Andrew Romine comes in because it's a close game and you don't want anything getting hit between third and short. So you're right. But as long as he keeps hitting the ball, that's awesome. I mean, at this point, he's hitting almost 100 points higher than his career average. That's outstanding. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to ride his hot bat for as long as we can ride it.
So, cuz the Philadelphia Eagles flexed. They made the move, pulled the trigger, and the Cleveland Browns have kind of done something really well. I mean, the Cleveland Browns are a team that are perennially awful in the category with the Lions, but they now get extra draft picks, and they've moved out of the second spot, traded it to the Philadelphia Eagles. So I kind of think that kind of signifies they want one of those QBs, and they're ready to rock and roll with it. What do you think of the move, real quick?
I think it's great for the Eagles, and I think it's a smart play by the Browns. Browns are going to get the 2016 first-round pick from the Eagles, which is 8 overall. They're going to get their third and fourth-round pick in 2016. They also get the Eagles' 2017 first-round pick, and they get the Eagles' 2018 second-rounder, which this is great if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. You've now got some draft picks that you can sit there and address monster holes in your lineup. This really changes the way the draft is kind of going to go now because obviously it appears that the Eagles now want a quarterback, and that was, I guess, something that you thought that the Browns were going to take as well. So that doesn't necessarily change it up right there. But what happens now at that 8th spot? Do they go running back because everybody had Ezekiel Elliott going to the Eagles? So do they pick him up if he's there? Do they go offensive lineman? Do they go, defensive lineman? What do the Browns now do? I mean, they've got multiple issues that they need to address, so it's going to be really interesting.
Or just more draft picks for them to flub and just pay out a lot of bonuses and a lot of money for guys that will just end up spread out across the league.
That's true. That happens, man.
Only in Cleveland, as they say.
That's right.
I think
we're like kindred sisters, honestly, because
exactly.
They're a complete dumpster fire, and for the most part, the Lions are too.
All right, let's begin into the CBS mock draft. You brought in Dane Brugler's CBS mock draft from CBSSports.com. Give us the rundown, sir. Why did you pick this one? What has he got? And it sounds like he brought to the table a detailed, very detailed mock draft.
This is 7 rounds of mock draft coverage. When I was sitting there searching for this, I was all oiled up. I had Honolulu blue butter all over me. It was great. I was just sitting on my couch with no underwear on. It was great. It's an awesome time. But looking at this first round, so a guy that me and you both are really high on, Jack Conklin, goes 15 to the Titans, which kind of gets me a little frustrated. At 16, they take Taylor Decker from Ohio State, offensive tackle. At 17, Shaq Lawson goes. Now, as I was lying in bed last night, sitting there contemplating what happens in this first round, because this is how my brain works, I'm sitting there racking my head. I'm like, you know what? I have a feeling that if Jack Conklin goes right before the Lions, I have a feeling this is going to be the Jeff Backus, Steve Hutchinson draft all over again. Remember when the Lions were really high on Hutch and they really wanted him, they wanted to grab him. He ends up going to the Seahawks, the pick before at 17. So the Lions come back and grab Jeff Backus at 18. And then for years, Backus is basically the pariah of the offensive line. I'm not as high on Taylor Decker as I am on Jack Conklin. I think Jack Conklin's a much better player. I think Conklin's the guy that you want of the two. I think Taylor Decker he's basically your rebound girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just going to use him just because he's there and you need him. So he's going to help you get through a tough situation.
You know who hates Jeff Backus?
Everybody?
My liver. Because you want to know why?
My liver? Because you used to have to get hammered to watch those Lions games?
No, me and Kenny would just be like, okay, here we go. Every time Jeff Backus goes offside or gets a holding penalty, take a drink. And there's some games he would just go offside so many times or get so many holding penalties, it'd be like, oh, here we go. I mean, we literally would just wait to laugh at each other and just be like, oh, been 4 minutes. Jeff Backus hasn't gotten a holding penalty. What the hell's going on here?
Starting to sober up at this point.
Oh, man, Jeff
that's
Backus.
brutal, dude.
Dude was penalized a lot.
He was.
And so and I remember that specifically.
So I really feel like at this point, Taylor Decker is slotted in as being a offensive tackle. I believe he fits better at the right side than he does the left side. I think in the end, he'll probably end up getting moved to guard. And I think we're all going to hate our life if this is the draft pick. I would much rather take defensive end Shaq Lawson, if he's there, over Taylor Decker. You want me to move on and go through the 7 rounds here?
Go ahead.
All right, so
who's got the Lions taken?
Second round with the 46th pick, they take Vernon Butler, defensive tackle out of Louisiana Tech, so they add some depth there. Round 3, take your wide receiver out of South Carolina, Farrell Cooper. 4th round, this is where I get real excited, because 4th round, this is a guy who I would not be upset if they take a chance on. We talked about this a little bit last week with the mock draft. At 111th, Jalen Smith, linebacker out of Notre Dame. There's some talk that he might sit out 2016, but he is a guy that if he can come back and he can be 95% of the player that he was, 90% of the player that he was in college, he will be a force in the NFL. That's a guy that I wouldn't mind risking a 4th round pick on. I'm okay with that. And if you miss, you miss. 5th round, this is a great pick. I like this. This draft sold me on what happens in the 4th and in the 5th round. I think this is great. 5th round, 151st pick. They go Kevin Hogan, quarterback out of Stanford. It's a guy who can sit there and push Stafford, I think, further on down the line. I don't think he's going to make any giant moves his first year in the league, but maybe second, third year, and you might have a developmental quarterback there. Who knows? He might show you something. He's a Stanford guy, so you know he's smart. Come back 169th pick. You've got Dean Lowry, D-end out of Northwestern. 6th round, you've got 191st pick. You've got Justin Burris, cornerback, NC State. You got 3 picks in the 6th round here, so 202nd pick, Nick Kotowazowski, linebacker out of West Virginia. So now you're adding some more depth at linebacker. 210th pick, you've got Kalen Reed, cornerback out of Southern Mississippi. And your 7th pick, you've got Adam Fuhin, tight end out of Southern Illinois. So overall, I'm okay with this. You address a lot of needs. You get your offensive tackle. It's not the guy I want. You add some depth at D-line. On both positions there, you got DN and you've got D tackle. You get a wide receiver. My pick, I'm sold on this draft with what happens in the 4th and in the 5th round by going out and getting a guy like Jalen Smith, taking a chance. Because if he falls to you at the 4th round, he was a guy who was supposed to be a top 5 pick up until his leg exploded. So like I said, if he can come back and give you 90% of what he was, he'll be a guy who'll be productive. And especially in the right scheme, I think it'd be a great fit. And I like going and getting a quarterback in the 5th round.
See, I'm opposite of you. I liked it up until I saw the Jalen Smith pick.
Okay.
After we talked about it last week, I looked into him a little bit more. Yeah, his injury is one of those where now you have to hope that he can be productive. And you have to hope that the surgeries that he gets actually repair his knee and make him a viable option there to play that position. I just feel like that position now in the NFL is a position where you got to be explosive. You got to be able to kind of read the defenses, and quickness and lateral movement is key. And so in that situation, I want to steer clear, because if it was any other organization, fine, plant him in there, take a risk. The Lions have gone, it seems like, over on risks. I mean, you've taken guys at running back, you've taken guys at key positions with knee problems, and look at what's happened. I mean, you can just go back to the last wide receiver that you took that had a history of ACL problems in Broyles. He got on the field and got hurt again, both knees, both ACLs again in the pros. I would just say, you know what? This organization, the Lions, and Eric Ebron said it on the radio, they need dogs, and they need players that are going to produce. And while I don't agree with a lot of what Eric Ebron says, I do agree everybody that has to be picked has to be somebody that's going to come in and produce. So overall, I like the scope of his draft, but I just didn't like Jalen Smith. And an interesting nugget when we look at the Lions in drafting quarterbacks. So how many have they drafted in the NFL draft since Matthew Stafford?
None. 0.
That was shocking when I read that. It's jaw-dropping in that in almost a decade, you haven't drafted a quarterback. That is anti-establishment. No teams really do that, and I think that's a big problem. It's maybe giving Stafford too much credit, and it's also hurting your organization in that you always have to look to the future. They need to draft a quarterback. This is one I believe they're going to draft a quarterback, and hopefully it's somebody that can come in and actually do something and learn and be willing to learn. But overall, and just looking at what some teams are doing, like the Eagles, like the Rams, they're being aggressive. I'm kind of getting nervous that the Lions still may be reactionary. I know I'm fighting my natural, pessimistic tendencies. I got a feeling like they're going to be more reactionary than aggressive. I just want to know that if the Lions find a guy, they'll actually willing to trade up and get him. I'm not sure of that yet. I'm looking forward to see the strategy, because I think you can kind of get a sense of what a team's going to do with their draft strategy. I just want them to be aggressive. I kind of still got a vibe, though, that they're going to trade some of these picks and slots and try to get more picks. The Lions team is tailor-made for trades to get more picks, even if it's down the line. Because look, the schedule is easy. You may not need all 7 picks this year. Maybe if you just go 5 to 6 and you get an extra, maybe start the process of getting extra picks in the first round. If somebody's there that a team wants, I think it's time we start stockpiling some of these picks and start making some moves.
Let me pose a question to you. If for some reason Jack Conklin falls to them at 16, they pick him. All right. I think that's a move that we both agree, we both like.
It'd be good.
Second round, we're talking about quarterbacks now. Connor Cook's there. Do you go get Jack Conklin? Do you get Connor Cook in your second round? That's your quarterback for the future, because Matt Stafford's contract's coming up. It's going to be a hefty toll on this team. And it kind of seems like the way that Quinn is building this team, he likes a lot of depth. I'm not totally sold that Matt Stafford's his guy. I'm not totally 100% sold that he's ready to move into the future and give Matt Stafford that huge contract. So maybe you'll get Connor Cook, who's probably the most professionally ready quarterback in this draft. You go pick him up, have him sit a year. Stafford's contract, I believe, is over 2017. You can then ease Cook into that starting role, and he's got his left tackle that he had when he was in school. There's a good rapport there. You now have your offensive line pretty much set. You've got your quarterback of the future. You now go basically 3 through 7, either trading back or adding pieces to sit there and help that defense out.
I say Connor Cook deserves better. Going to the Lions would be a tough thing, because I really feel like the Lions organization is just absolutely in love with Matthew Stafford. They got their guy. They've molded him. They've made him essentially a robot, a talking piece, great in the community, great in the locker room, doesn't say nothing, doesn't do much outside of kind of defend his wife, who's all over social media. But
blasting everybody.
I would just say that Connor Cook doesn't necessarily fit what the Lions are doing, in that until the Lions build an effective offensive line, I feel like once he got in there, Stafford has a little bit of elusivity going on there, and that he cannot maybe gain a lot of extra yards, but he can sort of keep plays alive with his athleticism. Exactly. So Connor Cook's not bad, but I do also like the stuff that Hogan puts on tape too. So I like that spot. I would say if Connor Cook is there and he's worth that value, maybe you pick him up with the idea of maybe sitting him, grooming him, then trading him for picks. Investment, buy low, sell high.
So you're going to sit there and you're going to ride this train with Matt Stafford basically until the wheels fall off.
They are going to ride the Stafford train until the wheels fall off, until there's no more. They're going to squeeze every single drop out of Stafford. Whereas even if he gets one playoff win this season and nothing else for 2 more years, I think it buys him his entire 18-19 NFL career with the Lions, because we're starving for just anything. And they've labeled him the franchise. I don't know. But hey, we could be totally wrong. And Bob Quinn could just be like, boom, broom him aside. He's not my guy. I would hope if he struggles that he would be broomed aside. But I feel like Mrs. Ford and the organization are absolutely, positively in love with Matthew Stafford. He'll be the guy.
I hope not. I really actually you've got Matt. You're on the hook for Matt Stafford until 2017. So, in my opinion, I think if Connor Cook's there and you're buying the Connor Cook train and you like what Connor Cook brings, I think you go get Connor Cook. You let him sit for the 2016 season. You let him sit for the 2017 season.
Yeah.
2018, when Matt Stafford's hitting 30 as your quarterback, and he's already making $16-17 million. He's making $17 million next year. You realize that? 2017, he's making another $16.5 million. So
listen, the story's going to go like this. The stock, if they get Connor Cook, will be super high. Then, just when a team needs a quarterback, we can get maybe a first-round pick. Then Stafford will get hurt week 17. Cook will go in there, throw 5 picks, and his stock value will plummet. And he goes from first-round talent in a trade to 7th-round talent.
You're so pessimistic.
That's what's going to happen. It's just the way it is.
I think if he's there, you go get him. You let him sit for 2 years. You let him learn the system, and then you can say farewell to Matt Stafford. And you've got an affordable quarterback now for the next 3-4 years.
You can even make the argument
maybe
that
2 years.
The Redskins and Kirk Cousins, they should have maybe shipped him off and really gotten a lot. They probably could have got a lot for Kirk Cousins before he played. Think about it. His value when RG3 was in there was so high after that first season. I think that he would have been ready. He could have been probably gotten a couple maybe second-round picks with the first mix in there. So now he's playing. He's okay as a starter. He's going to earn starter money, but I don't know if he's a guy that's going to live up to what you could have gotten for him. So it's one of those situations where sometimes the hype is okay if you can move a guy along. But the Lions and Connor Cook, I'm not sure that's going to be a great marriage if it ever happens.
I'm just saying, there's something else thrown out there. Just wanted to kind of get your take on it.
Yes, sir. The draft is coming. It's time now. This week will be the week where we dig in, look extensively at all of these guys. What's going to happen? Are any moves going to be made? What are these Lions going to do? The Lions are starting to talk now. They're starting to rev up the operation in terms of, hey, we got to perform. We got to do what we got to do in these camps, and it's about that time, baby. Time for the Lions Super Bowl, the NFL draft, baby. I can't wait to talk about it, break it down. Hopefully get some fun guests and break it down. And just real fast, Goff or Wentz, which one's better initially in your mind? Equal? Both tankalicious awfulness?
I don't know. Looking at the footage, I like what Carson Wentz has done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's table it, look at it, and we'll come back with a definitive answer, a tease for next time. We'll give our thoughts on who's the best 1-2 combination, because this could be one of those drafts where, it depends on who the Rams take and now the Eagles. It could affect what's going to go on down the line in several seasons. This Wentz and Goff argument. Very interesting stuff, 1-2 at the top of the NFL draft. All right, thank you, Cuz. Very good podcast. Always enjoy breaking it down, blowing off some steam. And we got a lot to chomp on this next week with the Red Wings, Pistons in the playoffs. The Tigers now getting into their season, seeing how they do against some of these tough opponents. And now it's about to rev up the NFL season and the draft. So much to get to. I love it. I absolutely love doing this podcast. Always a good time, sir.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
For Speed Racer, Adam, the Jock Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon, signing off on episode 141, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Go Tigers.
As we were recording this, news broke. It's on our screens here. We're watching it. The Philadelphia Flyers flexed, and they made the move.
Eagles.
Let's see this. Okay.
He said Flyers.
Yep.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.